Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, Senators. I'm Doug Moorcroft from South Kingstown, Rhode Island. I'm a firearms safety instructor, a war veteran, or a range safety officer. I was a Boy Scout shooting sports director. I grew up on a farm. I've had a pistol permit in many states since I was 18. I was an armed security guard when I was young, before I became active duty military. I understand firearms. I understand the need to reduce firearm violence. I would like to address the real issues and not infringe on our constitutional rights. I will quickly cover a lot of the topics that were already mentioned, but I have several concerns I don't believe have been mentioned yet. One overall comment is these bills inspire many citizens to purchase many more firearms every year. My overall recommendation is to stop hearing bills each year that clearly cross the line on constitutional rights and would never pass court muster, in my opinion. Bills like these are just driving folks to purchase firearms. The first bill, I do support Senate Bill 2134, which would require the AG to do a report each year. I also support Senate Bill 2148, which would basically recognize out-of-state permits. All the other bills I oppose. Getting back to 2148, it requires an incredible amount of time and expense for citizens to get pistol permits in multiple states. It is unacceptable. It is time for all states to recognize permits in other states. I understand we need to have some kind of limits on testing and at least a benchmark for issuing permits, but we need to start recognizing out-of-state permits in all states. For Senate Bill 2274, this is a bill, basically they want to outlaw rifles and shotguns being transported unless you're going to a range. Is outrageous. And I can't believe that anyone would even propose such a bill. It clearly would not pass a court review with anyone who was impartial. This would prevent me from bringing a rifle or a shotgun to a woodlot I own in Connecticut. Is so across the line, I just can't believe we're wasting our time discussing this bill. Please oppose Senate Bill 2274. For Senate Bill 2289, this bill will clearly increase the body count if there ever is a school shooting in Rhode Island, or it will have no effect. It will not reduce any kind of violence in schools. There's something like 4,000 concealed carry permit holders in Rhode Island. They're, for the most part, are doing their best, and they're the top of the sportsmen in Rhode Island. It's not easy to get. The Attorney General plays a lot of politics with issuing permits, and there's a lot of hoops to run through, and I just can't believe they're going after concealed carry permit holders. This would prevent many parents from bringing their kids to school. That is just outrageous. So you can't drive onto the school property and drop off your kids if you have a CCW and you're armed. And I also would like to cover Bill 2319. Basically, this is attempting to limit magazine capacity to 10 rounds. This is also outrageous. I own an antique rifle, and the only magazine ever made for it is a 20-round magazine. So basically, it's going to make my gun obsolete because you can't shoot it without a magazine effectively. And also, in case you haven't, this is one thing I haven't heard tonight yet. A lot of people don't realize when you reduce magazine capacity, if you do the math, what do you think people are going to do? They're going to get a larger caliber. That larger calibers are usually more deadly than the smaller calibers. So if you do pass the magazine ban, the vast majority of folks are going to go to larger capacity, larger caliber weapons that only hold 10 rounds. And I personally think that's the wrong way to go. And it is correct that it takes a couple seconds to exchange a magazine, but there's been many, it's not that difficult to carry around a few extra magazines. Senate Bill 2455, I also oppose. The Attorney General already plays politics issuing pistol permits. This would change Rhode Island from a shall issue for police chief issue permits to a may issue only for the Attorney General permits. And there's already too many politics in Rhode Island concerning pistol permits, and that is unacceptable. And I will probably be one of the folks fighting that in court to overturn it if anyone's foolish enough to pass that one. Senate Bill 2492, I oppose. This is a perfect bill to disarm someone if they if they have an issue with someone, they want to attack them, or they just want revenge, to basically, with no proof whatsoever, you can take away someone's firearms. This also would greatly discourage firearm owners from seeking any kind of counseling. I think that's the last thing we want to do. If someone thinks they need counseling, I want them to go get it and not to be discouraged by a bill like this. And many gun owners I'm aware of have already stored firearms outside the state, and this is only going to greatly increase that tendency if they pass a bill like this. And there's no procedure for transportation, storage, or what's going to happen to the firearms in the bill. There's no evidence required to show that the person is an immediate threat to themselves or others. And the burden of proof is on the accused. It's just crosses the line. This is a pre-crime bill, which would make our founding fathers just roll around their graves if they were aware of something like this happening. I also oppose Senate Bill 2493. The Second Amendment clearly protects common semi-automatic firearms. Many of them are the most common firearms owned, and you're trying to outlaw them. I would be shocked if that would not be overturned by the courts. And I also would, one other thing I haven't really heard very much of tonight is basically a lot of the numbers that we discuss, where a lot of these folks like to mention that the U.S. has a higher murder count than other countries. I totally disagree. The reason for that is they're only counting murders done by the own citizens of the country. What we really have to do is add up the murders done by the governments and the citizens. And if you look at the statistics from the 20th century, from 1900 to 2000, the many different studies are available out there, and they all kind of vary. But by and large, they're huge numbers. One study was 262 million people were killed by governments in the 100-year period. And that's just a huge number of people compared to the small number of Americans killed by other citizens with firearms. So I would ask, when you're comparing how many Americans are killed by firearms, to look at the big picture. How many citizens are also killed by their governments? And we are much safer in the U.S. compared to other countries, if you look at the big picture. And I guess I'm going to stop there for now.